The playoffs are here, and you can predict the action all the way to the finals with FanDuel Predicts. Predict the spread, the total points, and even the game-winning moments that make the playoffs. Sign up and get a $25 bonus with FanDuel Predicts.
Offered by FanDuel Prediction Markets, LLC, a registered futures commission merchant. 18-plus bonus is non-withdrawable and expires 7 days after receipt. Trading derivatives involves significant risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Manage your activity with their consumer protection tools. Restrictions apply. See terms at FanDuel.com/predicts/bonus-offer-terms.
Greg Kelly, entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
So, something else to consider for me. This is a halfway point for 2026. This is a monumental year, of course, with the midterm elections. Hey, every year is actually monumental, and we're halfway through this one. It's like a little bit of a mini take stock. Where has the year been? Where are we going? Who have I met along the way? And one of the individuals I encountered in 2026 for the first time, and I'm sorry it's the first time because, well, she's been calling attention to this matter for a long time, and I wish I had engaged earlier, but I'm talking to Geri Perna, and Geri is a great woman. Her nephew was prosecuted, over-prosecuted, persecuted by the federal government for January 6th related offenses. And the government, of course, got totally and completely carried away. And a young man was driven to suicide, Matthew Perna, who had everything going for him, but the government was branding him a terrorist, and he was looking at decades in jail. It's a sad story, but Geri Perna is picking up the pieces and inspiring me and a lot of other people. Geri, welcome. Thanks for being here. How are you? I notice you're kind of a bit more active on social media. I love it.
And thank you for having me on, Greg. And today I'm kind of like I'm a little upset today, definitely upset. I had learned last night that another January 6th defendant has taken his life. He was 31 years old. And after learning that, somebody posted underneath a tweet of another person that I was unaware of that committed suicide earlier this year. I don't know what the death count is for suicides on January 6th, but I don't think we ever will know the true number.
Well, the only thing that we were told about post-January 6th regarding suicide was the alleged suicide of police officers who were there that day. And I always kind of knew that was a fake story. There may have been suicides, but the suicides unrelated to January 6th. Because
I agree, because if they were real, we would have heard more about them.
Yeah, and I've looked into a couple, and these people, one guy I know tried to commit suicide prior to January 6th. Suicide's a difficult subject to talk about. Tell me a little bit about Matthew Perna and the run-up, your nephew, Matthew Perna, and the run-up to January 6th.
Well, he was arrested for 4 basic misdemeanors, and he was arrested on January 18th of that year. And a week or so later, they slapped the felony charge on him and several hundred other January 6ers of the charge obstruction of an official proceeding. And that was where the nightmare began, because now he wasn't just fighting, basic trespassing and parading charges. He was fighting a felony, which carried a 20-year sentence. And so that wore on for 13 months of delays, and in his hearings, they were constantly being delayed or they were being canceled, and it wore on him greatly. And every time there was anything in the news about January 6th, his local newspaper and local news channels never missed an opportunity to drag his name and his face across the screen every single time. And when he finally had enough and he said to his attorney, "What can I do to make this end?" the attorney said, "You need to plead guilty because you're not going to receive a fair trial in D.C. So in December of that year, the end of December, he pled guilty, and he was hopefully looking at a 6 to 12-month prison sentence. And a week before his sentencing hearing, his attorney told him that the prosecutor on his case was seeking to add a terrorism enhancement, and that could carry the prison sentence to decades in jail. And 4 days later, my nephew hanged himself. So he never did make it to that hearing. And then about, I guess it was less than a year later, the Supreme Court ruled that felony charge was actually used incorrectly, and it was dropped from all the J6ers cases, but my nephew had already killed himself. So,
life is obviously hard, and we all have stress, and people can be depressed. But day in and day out, and then you throw this monstrosity at a normal person who has ups and downs like everybody else. That's unthinkable. Really, to be the government to come at you as if you're a terrorist.
Exactly, Greg. And for somebody, let's say somebody like yourself, you're a public person. Everybody knows who Greg Kelly is. If there was some awful thing about your life that came out, everybody, oh my gosh, Greg Kelly, Greg Kelly, Greg Kelly. This was a person, my nephew was a nobody. Nobody knew who he was. He did not know how to handle this sudden influx of negative attention to him. He never had his attention anywhere, not positive, not negative, but all of a sudden you're thrown into the limelight and you're not prepared to handle what comes with being a public person. And Matt was just simply not capable. And none of these January 6ers were really capable of handling that thrust into this attention where it's all negative and they don't know what to do.
That's interesting. I never thought of it that way because you're right. I'm kind of accustomed to the rumble tumble of social media and beyond, and it's almost like they're talking about a different person. But if you're not primed for that, and that's been gradual over the years. I was, initially, extra sensitive. Now I'm, no, that's a very strange thing. And you're right. Wow. All right. So look, that President Trump tried to stand up a nearly $2 billion fund to compensate those affected by government weaponization. You have been affected, obviously, and your family. We can't do anything for Matthew now. That also came, at least for now, to a halt because the opposition, even Republican opposition, was enormous. I saw President Trump delivered an impassioned defense of this proposal, this idea. I think he's going to bring it back. How do you feel about that initiative? And have you heard anything about it coming back?
I've not heard anything about it coming back. I'll be honest with you, when the initiative was originally announced, I had absolutely no faith in it whatsoever. I encouraged any January 6ers who had a lawsuit against the DOJ to continue with their lawsuit and not depend on this coming out. I just did not believe this was going to happen from the get-go. I knew there would be opposition. I knew there would be roadblocks. And originally it did say it was not just for the January 6ers. It was open to anyone who was a victim of government weaponization. So that took that, however many $1 billion and, not quite $2 billion. And now you're spreading it over possibly thousands of cases. I knew it was just going to fall, and it did. And I don't feel it was enough money anyway. I do feel that the government owes these people something. I feel like they've been thrown in the trash. They don't want to talk about them. They want to pretend it didn't happen. But having somebody at 31 years old last month kill himself tells me that there are more of them. They're affected. They're not trash. They're human beings, just like my nephew was a human being. And I'm furious that they're being ignored.